and welcome to Yellow Farmhouse Makes. This is chapter 17. My name is Julie and I am a British expat living in the northeastern part of the United States with my husband and our rescue dog Jim. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. If you are a new viewer, welcome. Hope you enjoy the content. So without further ado, let me just give you a little catch up on what's been going on. This video is just a tiny bit later than normal. We have been in the throes of a kitchen renovation, which wrapped up at the end of last week. So things are finally settling down just a little bit. So I thought I'd sit down and record my podcast. So even with kitchen renovations going on, I was able to complete one finished object. If you saw my last video, you'll know that when I was attending knit night, I was given some yarn that came out of a friend's mother's basement. It was beautiful yarn, but it did smell very basementy, and I was able to get the smell out. And I decided to knit myself a vest. So the vest that I made is called See My Vest Chunky, and the pattern is by Emily Bolden, and it's a free pattern. It is just a very basic construction, and the only thing that I changed is I added some color work at the bottom of the vest, and my colorwork motif came from a Mary Jane Mucklestone book called Scandinavian Motifs. And if you have that book, the motif that I inserted was 115 because that worked with my stitch count. So without further ado, let me show you my finished vest. It, as far as we can tell, is Barrett Woolco yarn, and it is more than likely their 3-ply. But without having belly bands on the yarn balls, I have no idea for sure. But this is the color, which is called Dark Heather, according to the website. And then the color work at the bottom is Jade Heather. And I am still fairly new to color work, so it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And I know everyone likes to see floats, so let me show you. My floats, they are fairly even. I tried to keep a looser tension as I was adding color work so that it didn't pull in too much. I know you can go up a needle size to do that, but I wanted to stick with the needles I was using. So I used a US 10 for the body of the vest and a US 8 for the ribbing. And it was a pretty quick knit. It took me about 4 weeks, maybe 3 weeks to make it. And it's nice and warm. And now that it's been washed and blocked, it's not itchy on my skin. Now, it is definitely a rustic yarn, and it may feel scratchy to some of you if you have a slight wool sensitivity. But over the top of a button-down shirt, it's just fine. So I am very pleased with that finished object. It did occupy quite a lot of my knitting time just because I really wanted to get it finished so that I could wear it in late winter and our early spring here, which is the perfect season for a warm woolly vest. The other finished objects that I have are Easter related, and they are tiny little chickens that have concave bottoms that sit in a little nest so that you can put chocolates inside. So I'll show you the first one. It's super adorable. And I used scrap yarn to make these. And this is a pattern by Moo Moo Knits, and it's a free pattern on her website. Or you can pay, if you want to download it, you can pay $1. And I just have little Hershey's Kisses inside. And there's the bottom. It was an interesting construction. Looks almost like a little hat. But there's the concave chicken bottom, so you can sit it right here. So you could put chocolates in it, or you could put tiny knitting notions. I think that would be cute. But I think these would make great teacher gifts, or even if you have little ones in your life, just cute little Easter presents filled with jelly beans or tiny chocolates. So that's the first one. And then the second one is a little bit different. She looks a little sassy. This one is for a friend, so I'll be mailing this one off later this week. And I've just used scrap yarns. Some were DK and some were fingering weight held double. The pattern calls for DK yarn. And I just knit these on double pointed needles. So those are tiny knitted finished objects. So I do have a non-knitted finished object. I have been down the rabbit hole of watching videos on watercolor painting, and especially tiny watercolor painting. And I went to look at some of the small notebooks that were available as links in some of the videos I've been watching, and they were kind of pricey. And so I figured I would be able to make one myself that I can use with my Winsor & Newton travel palette, which is this tiny palette right here. With my swatch card, and it comes with a tiny brush, which I do use sometimes, but no, it comes apart like this. Goes back together. So I wanted to be able to make a small watercolor book to take along with me when I'm traveling. And so what I did was I made a tiny book-bound leather watercolor journal using watercolor paper, and this is it. Little chain stitch holding it together, and just a leather long strap so that I can wrap it, and a washer that I crocheted around with some wax thread from the bookbinding thread that I had, and that just holds it together like this. And I have inside, I have made the front cover more rigid by using a piece of greeting card that I glued to the front leather, so that keeps it nice and sturdy. And then I have 4 signatures inside that are sewn to the cover, and these are all watercolor paper. So I thought that was a super fun project, and I learned how to make these simple book-bound journals from a class that I signed up for online through Vintage Page Designs. She's a British woman, and she has a great website with so many different kinds of bookbinding classes, and there are some free ones available. And the one that I took was over 3 days, and it taught you how to make 3 different kinds of journals with 3 different kinds of stitching to attach the signatures to. And if that's something you're interested in, I would highly recommend taking a look at that website, and I will leave a link to that below. But I have made multiple journals because once you've downloaded that class, obviously it's yours to keep forever. And so I will periodically make a new batch to give as gifts. So these are 2 that I have left. This is where I got the leather for this little puppy, a little strip of leather that was left. And these ones I did get super fancy, and I added signature papers to divide each set of signatures. And this one is secured with a button and an elastic. And this is the very first one I made that is using cork fabric that has some silver sparkle in it. And this one is just closed with a piece of leather that I have a yarn ball toggle on. And again, this one has some very pretty signature papers dividing each signature. So again, super easy to make. Check out Vintage Page Designs if that's something you would like to try. So that was my non-knitting finished object. And then I will insert a couple of video clips and a photo of a finished object that is downstairs. We have a dining table that we bought when we moved into this house last summer, and it's longer than the table we used to have, so our tablecloth didn't fit anymore. And I wasn't really finding a tablecloth that I liked, and I suddenly had an inspiration to take the tablecloth that's too short and turn it into a table runner. So I did that earlier this week and was pretty pleased with how that came out. So it was an upcycle project that was pretty quick and easy, and might be something that you would consider doing if you had a tablecloth that was too small but you liked the fabric. And I do have enough fabric left from that project to make some napkins, so I'll be doing that in the coming weeks. So what I did with the tablecloth is on the long edges, I actually cut off the decorative binding, and what I did was reattach it to the piece of fabric that I was going to use as the width of the runner. That way the border is the same all the way around. So that is it for my finished objects. So let me talk to you a little bit about my works in progress. So I am still working on my jelly roll blanket. I'm not going to show it to you today because there's not too much progress on it. As I said, the vest was occupying a lot of my time, and so the blanket got put to the side a little bit, which is fine because that is really just a long-term project as and when I feel like picking it up. The other work in progress that you will have seen several times that's living in this bag that I made a while ago is my bamboo wedding shawl, which is a pattern, a free pattern by Pearl Soho. And I have put some work into this. It's still not very far along. Take my cork stopper off my needles. But it is coming along. I have now cracked into the second ball of yarn. And here is how it's looking currently. I have managed not to mess up any rows since taking out my lifeline very early in the project. But this is knit with Knitting for Olive, Cotton Merino, and this color is called Soft Mint. And the idea for this is it will be a shawl to wear at my son's wedding in September. It is an outdoor wedding, so if the evening is a little cool, it will be nice to have something just to wrap around my shoulders. So that project is still in the works and I'm enjoying it very much. It's just a 12-row pattern repeat, a very simple lace pattern. So it's mostly knit two togethers, slip knits and yarn overs to make that design. And then my next project is a new cast on. When I go to knit night, I don't like to have anything too complicated because if I'm chatting, I'm going to lose track. So I don't like to take the bamboo wedding shawl because if I'm talking to anyone, I will invariably mess it up. So I decided to cast on a pair of socks, and they're living in this lovely bag. It has a waxed canvas bottom and Harris tweed on the top. And this is a bag by Cottontail Farms, and I'll leave a link to that below. I've had this one quite a while. It was a gift from my husband several Christmases ago. But the socks that I'm making are the Impossible Girl socks by Madeline Gannon, and I keep returning to these all the time because they fit me so well and I really like the pattern. They have a faux cable that runs up each side of the foot and a long cuff. I usually make mine pretty long just because I'm usually wearing mine in boots. And then the yarn is Jagger Spun out of Maine, and this is their Mossam Falls sock yarn, and this is the color Pacific. It actually looks a little baby blue on the screen, but it's not. It's more of a tealy blue. But first sock is cast on, and that will be ready to go with me to knit night this week. So that'll be nice to have another pair of socks on the needles. And that is it for my knitting. So I do have a sewing whip. If you remember last month, I showed you some of my English paper piecing hexies. And since I saw you last, I have basted all the fabric hexies to the papers, and I have laid them out on a blocking mat and looked at them to decide where they should go. And I did see a very good tip about taking a photograph the way that we do with color work and then transferring it to black and white or grayscale just to see if there are any imbalances in the values of the colors. So I did that, and I'll put a photo of what that looks like in here. But let me show you what I have. I've laid my hexies out in a shape that I think would make a good piece of fabric to make either a pencil case or a zippered pouch to hold crochet hooks. So here they are, all laid out and basted. And I have started to sew these together. And I'm trying to be super careful not to have stitches showing. And I think I'm doing a fairly good job. I watched Kate at the last Homely House, who had a good little video on how to put mini hexies together, and her recommendation was about 20 stitches along each edge, 20 tiny stitches. So I'm trying to get close-ish to that. And my joining isn't perfect, but I think it's good enough to pass muster. And there's the back side. So once I have all these hexies together, I will probably sew them to a piece of backing fabric in order to make a pouch. But I'm really pleased with how those came out. I think they look lovely. And I can just pick this up whenever I have a few minutes spare to sew, but only if it's daylight. I did try sewing some while watching TV and the light isn't good enough, or else my eyes are terrible, one or the other. But that is a sewing work in progress. So I'll talk a little bit about some incoming and future projects. So one of my future projects is actually going to be a sewing project. I have wanted to start sewing my own garments, and I just wasn't sure what to start with. So I've decided that probably the easiest thing is a skirt. So I went to my local yarn shop, and historically they've been carrying mostly fabrics for quilters, but they're branching out. So they have ordered in some garment, apparel, no, what is it called? Apparel fabric, and some patterns. So I found a pattern that I really liked, and it is a beginner pattern. And it's this. This is the Maeve skirt, and the company is True Bias. It's a woman-owned company out of New York City. And this is available to knit in 3 different lengths. And I think I'm going to knit. It's not knitting, it's sewing. I'm going to sew the 2-tier version of the skirt, and it's elasticated waist and a drawstring. So, oh, and also pockets, because pockets are important. So that's the pattern. And then the fabric that I found is 100% rayon, and it's non-directional because the very helpful lady at the fabric store said your first project probably shouldn't be directional fabric, just in case you make a mistake. So I have this very lovely floral print, and I have been a very good girl, and I washed it already. So it's been washed, because I read that you're supposed to wash your fabric before you cut it out. So I think this fabric with this skirt will be very nice for spring and summer. So that will be cut out, and I'll start making that in the next month. Maybe it will be finished by the time I podcast next. I would like to take it with me on our next trip to visit our son, but we'll see. So that is a future sewing project. And the next incoming I have is some yarn. I treated myself on my birthday last month to a skein of yarn from a indie dyer who is very near to where I live. And this is it. It looked very pretty on the website, but in person it's even nicer. It's very squishy. This is fingering weight. The colorway is called Fractals. And the company that sells the yarn is called the Woolly Caterpillar. And the dyeing arm of their company is called Fox and Owl Dye Lab. You see the cute little logo here. And it's a husband and wife team. And as I said, they're just getting going. So they release new colors every Saturday. So be sure to check their website on a Saturday. And currently their yarn is incredibly affordable. So a skein of fingering weight is $20, which is a really, really good price point. And they will custom dye for you if you ask them to. But I wanted to support an up and coming new indie dyer. So what I was thinking when I ordered this yarn was it was going to be for socks. But once it got here and I saw all these lovely pops of color, I especially love this green, I just didn't want to put it on my feet. So I've created a Ravelry bundle with some one skein patterns in it so that I can decide what I want to make with this that will be just a little bit more special than socks. So what I thought I would do is I will record my screen and I'll show you what is in that One Skein Wonder bundle. Mostly it's shawls. I don't think I have any hats in there, but I'm thinking a shawl would be nice. So I'll share that with you just in case there's anything in my bundle that would be of interest. But I will leave a link to the Woolly Caterpillar in the description box below so you can take a look and see if any of their yarn is something that you might like to use. So that is it for the incoming, and I will catch you on the flip side of my Ravelry bundle video. This is my Ravelry bundle, which I've called One Skein Wonders, Shawls and Cowls, and I will leave a link to this in the description box so you can take your time and take a look at it yourself. So let's look at the first pattern in my bundle, which is the Ghost Flowers Scarf by Amy Christophers. And this is a $5 pattern that's knit bottom up, and the pattern is both written and charted. So if you're not comfortable using a chart, it's written out for you. And the beauty of this is that you can knit until you are running out of yarn and then just stop. So you can pretty much use up your entire skein, which I think is fantastic. And I think it's pretty cute. It has this lovely little motif in it that at first glance I thought it looked like dog paws, but it's really little flowers. But I think that would be a good option for my one skein. And the next shawl is the Rathlin Island Scarf. And this is a pattern by Brenda Brayfield. It's a shallow crescent shape and it has slips and knits. And if you hate to purl, you're going to love this because there is no purling involved, which is fantastic. And this is $8 Canadian. And I think this would just make such a great gift knit if you had several skeins. Actually, I love how she has all these solid colors too. And that might just be a great way to show off this pattern. But I think that's a contender. The next shawl is the Alpine Aster Shawlette by Brianna Arlane. And this one I think is really lovely. This is just a lace pattern in the shawlette. It's knit sideways, and this again is written and charted, so it's your choice. If you're not comfortable with charts, you can go ahead and just use the written section of the pattern. But it seems like this motif would be fairly easy to memorize once you got going. But I think that's very nice. Not particularly huge looking, but I still think it's a useful shawlette. Then we have the Venezia shawl by Joji Locatelli. And this is a $6 pattern. And this is a diamond shape and it's knit from tip to tip. And the nice thing about this one is that the lace is reversible. So you couldn't really tell front and back, which I think is nice. Sometimes lace patterns are a little funny looking on the wrong side, but that is a very pretty little shawlette. I think that's quite an elegant looking one. And then we have the Stormy Sky shawl. Excuse that very loud truck. It was a maple syrup truck going by. And this is from Life is Cozy. And I have actually knit this one twice before. And both times I gifted the shawl to friends and to a friend and to my sister. So I was pretty sad when I had to give it away because it was so nice. It's an asymmetrical shawl with a really fun texture pattern in it. And in this photo it looks huge, and that's because amazingly this is a huge scarf once you knit it. I'll just pull up mine. And there's one that I knit and gave away. And the other one is right here. This one went to my sister. But it was a really fun knit, so even if I don't knit this one again myself, I would highly recommend it because it was a very easy and fun pattern to make. Get back to the bundle. Okay, and now we have a cowl. This is the Early Spring Bud Cowl by Olga Olach, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. So I'm sorry if I've butchered the last name. This one is knitted bottom up and on the wrong side, so there is no purling. And the textured pattern design is made using just slip stitches and then something that she calls nups, which are a little bit like, I guess, bobbles, but not as bobbly as bobbles. But I think that's really very nice. That would be a good use of a pretty one skein. And that pattern was $4. And the next one is the Artist's Garden Scarf by the Unruly Stitch. And this one has a nice texture pattern in it. This one is a free pattern. There is some errata note on the page, which is not, if you print out the pattern, it's not there, but it's only on the Ravelry page, so you'd have to pay attention to that. This is a asymmetrical crescent shawl with some lace pattern in it. The next one is called the Birch Bark Canoe by Todwick Studios. And this one is a crescent shape in stockinette, so the only time you have to pay attention is for the lace wave pattern at the end, which is supposed to be reminiscent of a canoe on the water. So a lot of potato chip knitting in the middle and a little bit of the lace detail at the end. That one would be very nice, and that is also a free pattern. Next up is the Souvenir Shawl by Maria Samuelson, and this one is 50 krona, and it just has a really nice lace detail on the edge with sort of a scallopy pattern, and then some lace detail along the spine of the shawl. So that is a very nice one. And then we have Snowflake Party by Martina Behm. And this one has some very pretty little snowflake motifs running along it. This one is knit on the bias, and it's mostly garter stitch and just a little bit of the lace pattern, which would be slip stitches and knits, and that is both written and charted, and that one is €7.59. Again, very nice. And then my final pattern in my bundle is Birds and Ships by Caitlin Hunter, and this one is sort of a bandana style cowl, and it's knit flat and then joined in the round, and the tassel is optional. So that's very nice too. So those are the shawls and cowls that are in my bundle, and I hope that this has been helpful for you if you have any special skeins sitting on your shelf and you're not quite sure what to do with them. I think there's a good selection of patterns here, and let me know if you decide to knit any yourself, and I will sit here with a cup of tea and ponder which one I would like to cast on. They're all really nice, and it's going to be hard to choose, but I really would like to get that yarn knit up into something pretty. So I will leave the link to this bundle in the description box down below, and I hope that this has been helpful for you. So I had said that I would give away some things that I had made, and I have 2 little packages to put together for you. So the 2 little giveaways are, I'll show you the first one. This is a DPN case that I made, and they're for the smaller DPNs, not the super long ones, so they fit a DPN set quite nicely. I'm not a professional sewist, so they're not perfect, but this is a fun pattern, and I'm including a tiny notebook that I made with a seed packet, and it's just sewn with bookbinding thread. But these are the perfect size to put in your knitting bag, just to keep track of what you're doing. So that is the first little giveaway. And then the second one looks a little bit different. This one has butterflies on it and pink poppers, and the lining is little ditzy flowers. And then the notebook for this one is made from a seed packet with bachelor buttons on it, which I thought was very appropriate. So again, it's just a little sewn notebook that's perfect to put in your knitting bag. So that is the second little giveaway. And if you're interested in receiving one of these giveaways, then just put in the comment box below somewhere, include DPNs, and maybe tell me what you like to knit with DPNs, and I will pull 2 winners ready for the next video. So until next time, enjoy your crafting, enjoy the warmer weather that's creeping up on us, and if you're in the southern hemisphere, enjoy your autumn. And until next time, I will see you very soon. Bye-bye.